Wizards are conceptually the cooler class than sorcerers, but sorcerers are just way funner to play. Blue tieflings are far better than red tieflings. There are D&D laws that never change, but one of them, I'd argue, has. Marshals got buffed a lot. For some reason, this isn't being talked about. D&D 2024 has closed the gap completely in the Marshal-Caster divide. Big claim, I know. But after running over 100 sessions of D&D's newest edition, I believe that I have the backing to prove it. Should you disagree or agree with me, drop a comment. I love seeing debates in my comment section. I watch attentively to every single one. In 2014, at level 5, casters were equal to marshals, and by level 9, casters generally had such an arsenal and a toolkit that they outclassed marshals fairly easily. In 2024, I would argue that casters only equal marshals at around level 7, and only really surpass them at level 15. Now, let's agree on the brass tacks. Marshals and casters are good at different things. Casters are good in fights where there's loads of weak monsters, just hordes and hordes of enemies, or in fights where maybe there's high AC monsters that the marshals just really can't even hit. And of course, they're good in fights where they're not being targeted. If the caster is being targeted, yeah, sure, they have shield absorb elements, but ultimately they will get whittled down unless they're Bladesinger. Marshals, on the other hand, are good in fights where there's a few really strong monsters, ones that they'll be able to really keep on hammering until they're dead the whole fight. They're also good against any monsters that have any innate magical resistance, or have any elemental immunities or resistances that the casters might usually tend to use, ultimately making them really the best in long-term fights where they're just battering away against the huge boss and just taking hit after hit, but having the HP, the AC, and overall even potentially some resistances themselves to deal with it without much of a problem, or worrying about whether or not they should go all out. Even at low levels, a sorcerer with burning hands is dominating a fight with a horde of goblins, while even a high-level fighter might be feeling a bit overwhelmed. It's just that there's been some ground, though, that casters take more and more of as they level up, whereas marshals stay stagnant. They get better at the ground they already cover, sure, but not really expand past that. Casters from even level 1 are better at utility, area of effect, support, and crowd control. What they can't do is tanking and single target damage, until of course later levels, when they gain access to spells that allow them to do this, to the point where it's even at times better than the damage output that marshals can do themselves. Marshals, on the other hand, are sore out of luck. A level 5 fighter is going to be no better at dealing against hordes of enemies than a level 20 fighter. Or at least, that's how it's been for a great deal of time in 5th edition. Yet, with the changes that 2024 has implemented, well, it's time for me to try and convince you that all of this is old news. Starting out with one of the biggest changes that no one really has talked about, which has been magic items. Vicious weapons now deal an extra 2d6 damage per hit. Rings of resistance are no longer attunement. With the implementation of enspelled weapons, suddenly marshals are actually able to cast rather high-level spells to the point where it's even rather frequent. And yeah, that's it. It sounds like a joke. Am I really saying that these 3 changes, these small just magic items, mean anything? I am. One of the reasons as to why marshals suffer later on is due to a lack of damage they can dish out, and being forced to endure so much elemental damage that the casters can reduce twice over, with succeeding on the saves and casting absorb elements. Spirit Shroud and Conjure Elementals are the kings of dishing out damage when it comes to single target damage. But the fact is that marshals finally have something to stand out in higher levels, which is a massive change. 2d6 damage per hit is nothing to mess around about when it comes to what marshals can do with that bonus, in combination with all of their many features that might enhance that. Next, we have Feats. Feats, which has gotten a massive glow up in this new edition, something which someone who's been only playing a fighter for the past year, and the only D&D game I'm a player in, has been very happy about. Across the board, every feat in the game besides Origin feats gives a +1 to an ability score, something which is a huge bonus to marshals who need ability scores more than your average spellcaster, who only really needs to keep upping their spellcasting stat. Monks and fighters have benefited the most from this change. Monk as the martial class that needs the most stats to function, and fighters who are now hardly tempted by any ASIs anymore. By level 8, my point by fighter has 20 strength and 16 con, and has only taken feats. Not only is the +1 to scores a great boost for fighters, but the actual feats themselves have been upgraded. Great Weapon Master no longer needs you to maximize plus to hit anymore. Great Armor Master scales with your proficiency bonus. Dual Wielder with Nick can grant you a whole new attack. Mage Slayer now gives a short rest legendary resistance. There's so many feats that have been boosted, but admittedly, there has been some that have been changed for the worse. For instance, Sentinel is in a weird spot where you're kind of really hoping for your ally to be hit by an attack from an enemy so you can retaliate. Meanwhile, Sharpshooters at the top of hills are lamenting over the loss of dealing more damage than PCs in melee being a ridiculous thing they won't be able to do anymore. Now, has this helped spellcasters? For sure, but not as much. They've benefited a lot from the +1s as any class would, but the core feats for them haven't been amped that much, and the benefits that they gain from the +1s hardly are in any comparison to what marshals have gained. Now, magic items and feats are great boosts that marshals have gotten, but there's something beyond them all. Weapon masteries. These alone have granted so many styles of play the ability to even exist. In addition to this, fighting styles have also been boosted. Starting out with weapon masteries, Vex and Topple have increased the chance to hit for marshals, with the sheer amount advantage granted by these only rivaled by flanking rules in the past which most DMs haven't used. Meanwhile, with rogues, they get to finally enjoy how easy it is to deal their sneak attack damage with Vex, guaranteeing them some advantage as long as they hit the enemy at least once, and keep that train going. Raise has enabled even your everyday marshal to deal damage to the blurred mage casting shield, despite missing, forcing them to make concentration saves. Nick is a godsend to any dual wielder, which in combination with the dual wielder feat itself allows for the playstyle to be more than viable, with a level 5 fighter able to make 4 consistent attacks every round without expending any resources. Cleave is an amazing one that helps give marshals some horde clearing potential and is perfect for anyone with a vicious weapon, rage, or any other damage boosts that have nothing to do with the character's strength. Modifier. Push really makes you want the enemy to hit your friend if you have Sentinel, allowing you to push them back 10 feet and also reduce their speed to 0, royally embarrassing them the rest of that round. Sap and Slow are okay. Sap is definitely better than Slow since it can help with tanking against a boss and just granting a little bit of maybe some extra HP that otherwise would have been lost from a single hit. But hey, Slow could also be good when fighting a dragon. Overall, all of these masteries are amazing for marshals. I would argue that each of them equal the power of some first to second level concentration spells that the marshals would always have active. Now, there is also the boost to fighting styles, 2 of them in particular. Protection now no longer is horrible like it was prior. Instead of only giving disadvantage on a single attack against an ally using your reaction, it is now all attacks against that ally, which is amazing. Not only from the enemy attacking them, but beyond that, lasting all the way up until the start of your next turn. Great Weapon Fighting now has been adjusted wording-wise to have all of your 1s and 2s equal 3s. Now, this is not explicitly just your weapon dice. It is actually all damage dice you roll that results from an attack. So, not only is your vicious weapon amazing with this now, but also smites are also viable to use a two-hander with and this fighting style, when they otherwise really weren't that good of a choice. Now in D&D 2024, all classes and subclasses have gained a boost in some way, and for the most part, no nerfs. The only exception to this is Bard, which is absolutely the weakest caster in the game, and got no love in 2024. Trust me, you'll see a video on the poor thing soon enough. But overall, like I said, each class has been given some boosts. Fighters now have quadruple the amount of second wins, Paladins have 2 Channel Divinities / Channel Oaths now, Barbarians' Rage lasts for 10 minutes, and for 2 sweeping buffs, all martial subclasses have been hugely boosted, more than your average caster subclass. And for monks, what can be said that hasn't already been said? Every single thing that monks could do before has been scaled up dramatically higher. A lot of key-dependent abilities now cost no key whatsoever. They flat out gain new abilities as well. Overall, they're night and day compared to their old version, which was a one-note stunning blowbot. Now, casters have always been the kings of utility. Even simple cantrips can do things that marshals have some trouble with. Need to clean a blood-covered wooden plank floor before any passerby is spotted? In the inn, marshals have to go look around for a rag, water, maybe a mop, and they need to be good and quick about it too before someone spots the murder that just took place. Casters, they can just cast Prestidigitation, and in 6 seconds, it's gone. Yet, there is something our short rest kings are amazing at now. It's ability checks. Tactical Mind, for fighters, can now give them an extra 1d10 to any failed ability check, and you keep your use of Second Wind even if you find yourself failing. Rage now lets barbs use their strength for 5 extra skills you couldn't do otherwise. Rogues conquer any skill checks earlier now with reliable talent that they did get in the old edition, and with the skilled feat, they can use it with a lot more skills. And on top of it all, most martial abilities now at least gain back 1 use on a short rest. Even their hit dice have been improved. Here's something that many don't actually know. Even I didn't know this before I saw a change in 2024. When you took a long rest in 2014, you already gained only half of your hit dice. You heard me. Casters, they get everything back from level 1 to level 9 spell slots. All back, no problem. Marshals, alas, didn't even gain over half of their hit dice, which, being up in the front, was a huge deal for them. After all of this, I don't think that anyone can really say that marshals do not dominate the scene. Sure, at level 17, casters can go ahead and cast Wish and cause meteors to fall forth from the sky. Even before that, clerics with spiritual guardians can sweep through armies. But compared to how things were in 2014, it's night and day. I would even go so far as to say that the martial caster gap exists. Yes, it exists. Yet, it's flipped, where martials are now stronger than casters. Of course, I came to this conclusion before Circle Magic was introduced. Circle Magic, I believe, is strong enough that it even things out everything. This is the first time I'd say in D&D that martials and casters have been perfectly balanced. If you disagree with me, feel free to state your reasoning in the comments. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, and do subscribe. And like the video.